Hey everybody, Brett from AstartesGaming here, back with a look at the most recent Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord developer blog. This is the blog for September 14th, 2017, where we're getting a Q&A with Murat Türe, or however you pronounce his name, who is the lead developer on the game engine design team. And so let's get into it. In the introduction here, they just talk about licensed game engines, how they thought about using them, but they decided to develop their own so that they could get the full potential out of the game and tailor it to exactly what they wanted. And so this guy has been with them since 2013, so that means he wasn't around for Warband. I think if he joined in 2013, he's probably been almost exclusively working on Bannerlord. I mean, if he's working on the engine team, he's probably been working on that engine since the game was announced. And then obviously, again, lead programmer for the game engine team. Now, there is a caveat here. There were rumors sort of circling that the lead programmer for the game engine left the company, and I think that was about a year ago, maybe a little bit more than that, but roughly around a year ago. And they were never confirmed or denied, or at least as far as I know. So take that with a grain of salt. He may be the same guy that was leading the team back then, or those rumors might be true and he is just filling in for the guy that left who originally designed the engine. Either way, he's the one we got now, so we'll just keep focusing on him. What's he normally do during his workday? When he arrives at the office, the first thing he does is check his mail. He's in constant communication with each department of the development team to ensure that any issues relating to my work are highlighted. So yeah, everybody who's developing this game is doing so through the game engine. So when they run into issues, obviously that all comes back to him. Then he proceeds to check any newly opened reports from the QA team, who work tirelessly to find any problems with the game and the engine. Following that, he checks the previous night's automated performance test reports, which they use to gather data over a period of time to help us monitor game stability and to check the impact on performance that any recent changes have had. After gathering all of this information, I relay it within my team so that we can resolve any problems and make improvements to the engine. Throughout the day, I attend code design meetings, work on code reviews, and write additional code in my spare time. I also create my own performance profiles for the game using various configurations. For example, I will test huge infantry sieges to record the performance of a very specific situation. I will then repeat the test using cavalry or range units to track any changes. Alright, so it sounds like in terms of the engine, most of what they're doing, if not all of what they're doing, is optimization. So that's a good sign. It means the engine is pretty much like set, and all they're doing is like fine-tuning it so that we'll get the best performance possible when the game comes out. What does he like most about Bannerlord? His happiest moments while developing the game are when a new optimization is working and I see the FPS counter rise. We are striving to make the game run as smoothly as possible on a wide range of systems, and it gives him great satisfaction and pride in his team to see how the game is constantly improving. Visually, he really enjoys the new cloth simulation system, but he must admit that the particle effects in the big battles are his favorite. Alright, so what's the most difficult thing he's had to solve so far? Improving stability, performance, and visual quality at the same time without sacrificing any of them. We devised a way to handle this using a detailed integration system, lots of automation, and with our hardworking QA team. Okay, so it seems like they're really getting into optimization here, and I mean, that's something I appreciate because obviously they're trying to improve, or they have improved the graphics from Warband considerably. The game looks far, far better. The physics are, modeled on real physics, where in Warband everything was just a pre-canned animation, or at least for the most part it was. So that's cool that they're able to get the game performing better than the original while still looking and playing better as well. Alright, so what's he currently working on? He's checking and improving the performance of medium to very low hardware configurations. It's important to us that players get to experience a smooth and enjoyable gameplay experience. He's constantly trying to refine the engine to ensure that this is the case. Alright, so it's always nice when they take consideration for like low-end computers so that everybody has a chance to play. I doubt that we'll be seeing like, you know, really low end stuff, playing like 500 versus 500 battles. But I mean, being able to play it all on like a super low end rig is always nice. You know, I've had old beater computers where I never met the minimum specs for anything back in the day, and it's frustrating because, you know, there isn't always a way to get the game to run, and you know, you don't want to be left out just because of your hardware. Okay, so his favorite faction in the game is the Crusade for cultural reasons. And let's see, how would we compare the engine for Bannerlord to the original one? This is where we get into like the actual real like meat of the blog post, where they're going to give us some actual information. And this is going to be the most information that we have gotten about the engine so far, so definitely time to pay attention. So the rendering and post-effects system has been revamped. We have a physically based rendering engine, which ensures that the materials in the game are visually appealing and consistent. Better depth of field. I don't think we had any depth of field in Warband. HDR imaging, definitely didn't have that in Warband. Screen space reflection and ambient occlusion techniques have been added and optimized, so we get even more. I don't know if you could call those like post-processing effects, but better graphical upgrades. A GPU simulated cloth system has been introduced, which has a general material system that supports different kinds of meshes, enhancing the animations and visuals of the game. Bannerlord relies even more on CPU usage than Warband. Hundreds of characters, more advanced animations, and inverse kinematics. Inverse kinematics is the same mechanic that Warhorse Studios is using on... I am blanking on the name right now. The sword fighting one. The one that I backed for like 60 bucks. God damn it. Kingdom Come Deliverance, there it is. So the way that they're modeling sword interaction in Kingdom Come Deliverance is also via inverse kinematics, and I can see why they would want to use the same system here, because you do have the block and parrying type stuff. Obviously, it's a little bit more complex in Kingdom Come, but in Bannerlord, it's the same idea, just happening like way more times on screen. But that's really cool that we'll have that. Individual AI, formation AI, combat calculations, which do not change in respect to distance or visibility, and many other requirements really increase the burden on the CPU. In order to accommodate this, our optimization efforts are more heavily focused on the CPU. We generally try to use data-oriented design, which enables us to achieve high amounts of parallelism and core usage. Currently, 60 to 70% of the frames, or of the frame, is fully parallel, which means it can and will use all of the cores of current and next-gen CPUs for this foreseeable future. The old engine generally used one or at most two cores. This means that as new, higher core count CPUs begin to emerge, Bannerlord will scale well with the new hardware, and players will be able to test bigger and denser battles. Currently, our aim for battle sizes on the current generation high-end gaming CPUs is at 800 characters, or 400 versus 400, at 60 FPS. So a couple things there. First, really excited about the better core usage. I am running an AMD 8320 Black Edition with 8 cores. Yeah, 8 cores. And it is, I think, around 3.5 gigahertz, but I've overclocked it to 4.2. And despite having a really nice CPU, you know, I can play other games great, but in Warband, even on like the higher unmodded battle sizes, because I'm only running on like 1 or 2 cores, usually 1 from what I've seen, the game plays like trash on most mods if I run the battles too big, which is really a shame, because I have like fairly, I mean, it's not super high end, but I have like slightly above average gaming hardware, and it is like real gaming hardware. So yeah, I mean, it's always kind of disappointing that even on an older game like Warband, I can't play it that well because it's just so poorly optimized. So this is great news, because, you know, as CPUs get better and better, we'll be able to run bigger and bigger battles, to the point where, you know, maybe 10 years down the road, if we're still playing Bannerlord, you might have like a 16 core CPU and you can be running like 1,000 versus 1,000 in these battles. That's cool that the target is 800 characters at 60 FPS. In Warband, I think the slider goes up to like, I can't remember now because I don't usually fuck with it, but I want to say like 100 on 100, maybe 150 against 150. And obviously you can mod it to be bigger than that to pretty much any size you want. But the game plays like trash when you do it. So this is great because not only are we getting like 400 versus 400 battles, we're getting it with real-time physics, far better graphics, hopefully improved AI, and all while still at 60 frames per second, which is like the important thing. I would take 200 versus 200 at 60 FPS in Warband, and good luck pulling that off. So the size of scenes is generally around 4 square kilometers, which is pretty huge, which is much larger than in Warband. And scene creation is much faster. We've developed lots of new editing tools for objects, terrain, and flora for the scene designers to use. We have advanced terrain system, which can support up to 16 layers per scene, with no restriction on layers used per node. Also, the designers now have access to a scene upgrade level system, a scene masking system, which is used in siege scenes to allow level 1 to 3 castles to be placed in one scene, and a new weather system, which is used for creating different weather versions of the scene. With all the CPU and hard drive optimizations we try to achieve, less than 1 second loading times on these bigger scenes. That's great. I'm still doing Warband playthroughs on my channel, and you guys will often see when we jump into a scene, sometimes I do a fade to black cut because I'll click on like walk around the streets and it'll sit and hang for like 10, maybe 15 seconds before it loads it. And so rather than just leave that in there, I usually just like, fade it to black and then come back when it's loaded. But less than 1 second is fantastic. Also, this system that they're using to sort of mask the scenes is really cool. So the alternative to this would have been to like have everything present and script based in there, and that means that loading each scene would take longer because everything's there and the game has to figure out, okay, is it raining? Do I load the rain? Like, are we under siege? Do I need to load like the damaged walls or whatever? So this is really cool. Also, we know that the way fiefs work now is they all start as a basic village and are built up from there to be large villages or even castles. So this allows you to basically take that base village and add parts to it, and then just when that gets upgraded, you call the next scene versus having to like again have all possible upgrades present in one scene and then call on them via scripts when it's loading that scene, which is probably why Warband takes so long to load them. Hopefully these tools are going to be available in some form for modders, because obviously with that new fief system, if people want to create a lot of the total overhaul mods that we've seen, whether it be like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings or whatever, these tools would be really, really useful. And it's nice to know more about the engine. I'm glad we finally got to hear some of it, because they've been touting that this engine has been vastly improved, but we've never actually gotten much detail about it. So that's it for this one. Again, this was the Q&A on September 14th, 2017 with Murat, Türe, the lead developer for the game engine team. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I always have a great time talking about Bannerlord with you, and I look forward to seeing you guys back here next week for the next devlog.